we have Transportation Secretary here for our lead story. And this interview is just remarkable because according to the White House, according to Karine Jean-Pierre, according to the Energy Secretary, according to the Transportation Secretary, the Bidens, the White House, the whole administration is doing nothing but winning. Wait till we get to that clip just one moment. You have the Transportation Secretary Pete Buttigieg dodging multiple questions on whether the U.S. economy is headed for a recession. I don't even know why that's a question of heading for a recession because we are already in one, folks. We already have had 2 consecutive negative GDP growth quarters. That is the definition, the rule of thumb for recession. But somehow the media have hopped on board with this whole thing of going, well, are we heading into a recession since you're saying that we're not into one? It's unbelievable how the media will continue to rub their shoulders. While making the rounds on Sunday talk shows, Buttigieg deflected multiple times when hosts asked him if he thought a recession was forthcoming. His comments come on the heels of 2 quarters of negative economic growth, which meets the rule of thumb. By definition of a recession, combined with crushing inflation that rose to 8.2% from September 2021 to September 2022, surpassing analysts' forecasts. I mean, it's, folks, month after month, quarter after quarter, the White House is consistently surpassing analysts' forecasts. They also did it with the Consumer Price Index. They beat that one. I mean, but according to them, as you're about to see right now, they're doing nothing but winning. They got accomplishments left and right. And it's amazing how they get away with this type of messaging because it comes from the president. You see Karine Jean-Pierre strutting up to the podium each and every day, pushing the same narrative, and that goes from the Energy Secretary, all cabinet members, and now we got Pete Buttigieg, Transportation Secretary, doing the exact same thing. Let's go ahead and roll it.
Let's talk about the Transportation Secretary, Pete Buttigieg. Mr. Secretary, thank you for joining us this week. We saw President Biden out there saying that he's going to be announcing more steps to take on inflation and particularly gas prices this week. What more can he do?
Well, I won't get ahead of the president, but as you have seen throughout this year, he's taken a number of steps, everything from flexibility on ethanol to the release from the Strategic Oil Reserve to try to create a little bit of breathing room for families that are paying too much at the pump. Also drawing attention to the fact that you've got a lot of corporations that are wildly profitable right now and what seems to be a larger than usual spread between
Again, I know I'm repeating myself each and every week here on the show. It's everybody else's fault. That's going to be the theme of this midterms. It's everybody else's fault. And if it's not everybody else's fault, then they're going to single out somebody. It's going to be Trump. It's going to be Putin. It's going to be the Saudis. I mean, it's going to be at no point here, folks, is it going to be Biden's fault. And you're going to see that message continue through this interview.
Wholesale oil prices and what we're paying at the pump for gasoline. This is part of a bigger focus that the president has sustained throughout this year on fighting inflation and creating more of that breathing room for American families, which is part of why achievements like the Inflation Reduction Act, lowering the cost of health care, lowering the cost of energy for American families, it's why that's so important, and it's why we can't turn back on the progress that's been made, especially because we know there's still a long way to go.
What progress? CPI's up, energy's up, inflation's at 8.2%. What accomplishments? What's being done? Nothing's been done. That's the answer, but they're going to lie straight to your face. All weekend he did this. All weekend.
Right now, as you know, those numbers are weighing on Democrats as you head into the midterms, just about 3 weeks left before the midterm elections. How should Democrats address it?
Look, I think the good policy is good politics, and we have been doing the right thing for the American people with proposals that are and achievements legislatively that are popular because they make sense. That's true of the infrastructure law, which, having been signed about a year ago, now we're actually out there making these improvements to bridges, roads, airports, things around the country that need work. And I think part of what this administration and this president were elected to do was to deliver on things like that. Same with the Inflation Reduction Act. I mean, here you have this environment where Americans are facing.
It's almost like he's taking a gulp because he's having a tough time just completely lying to all of you. I love this idea of like, oh, it's a huge accomplishment that We passed the Inflation Reduction Act. We're throwing a ton of money at infrastructure, just pumping the economy just full of cash. Disregarding the whole fact that helped contribute to inflation, but it's okay, folks. It's accomplishments. It's helping you out at the end of the day. It's so a bunch of BS.
A lot of pressure because prices are up, and we have ways to bring prices down on prescription drugs. Letting Medicare finally negotiate, capping insulin for those on Medicare at $35 a month. That $2,000 out of pocket cap on prescription drugs. And remember, there are proposals in the Republican Congress right now to reverse all of that, which would mean that premiums and prescription drug costs would go up. And it is exactly the wrong time to do that. It's the wrong time to do anything that would increase costs for healthcare or anything else for the American people. We're going to focus on that, focus on the achievements that have been made in this Congress and under this president, as well as the vision for the future.
You didn't mention one of the first achievements, those direct payments to American families in the wake of the pandemic, the expansion of the child tax credit. A lot of Democrats think that your candidate should be speaking more about those accomplishments from last year.
Well, we are proud of those accomplishments. The things that those accomplishments have done, first of all, contributing to historic job creation under this president, 10 million plus jobs. That's never happened in this time period in a presidency before.
It's never happened because we've never had a global crisis like this before where everybody shut down their entire economies, man. You shut everything down, you start it back up. Of course you're going to have job growth. Of course you are. But totally just going to disregard the fact that you just pumped the economy full of ton of money. And now you have massive inflation, 41-year high inflation, and you can't get it under control. And they're calling it an accomplishment. I'm laughing because this is unbelievable. They're just like, we're winning everywhere. I mean, they sound like Trump, right? There's going to be so much winning. You're going to get tired of it. They're like, there's so much accomplishments. We don't even know what to do with it all. I mean, that's probably going to be a tough messaging point for us. We're going to have so much accomplishments. Oh my God.
In American history. Remember, we have our challenges right now, but when the president took office, we were facing an economy that was at risk of going into free fall. The American Rescue Plan stopped that, and it went directly into easing the burden for Americans with those tax benefits that Americans got. And it went into projects that are improving communities all around the United States. I was back in my hometown, saw some infrastructure projects that they're doing there with some of that ARP money. The mayors know what to do with it. Communities know what to do with it. Families know what to do with it. And I do think we run the risk because there have been so many accomplishments, right? The CHIPS Act that's bringing manufacturing back to the United States, the PACT Act getting veterans the benefits they deserve, of course, the infrastructure bill, the Inflation Reduction Act. On top of that American Rescue Plan, in some ways, having achieved so much legislatively makes it hard to talk about it all at once because there are just so many accomplishments.
Hello. I was being satirical. I was joking earlier about... He just echoed the exact same thing I did. He just said the exact same thing that I was just joking about. That there's so much accomplishments that we're going to have a tough time just bringing it all together and just getting that message out. I feel like I'm a part of the Babylon Bee right now. Literally just making jokes. And this guy's out there being serious.
The threat of a recession is still looming. We saw the head of JP Morgan, Jamie Dimon, said it's all but certain to be coming in a few months and it's going to be bad. How worried are you?
Look, it's possible but not inevitable. And we're doing everything we can to strengthen the foundations of the American economy. And that means a lot on the supply side, expanding the productive capacity of this country. Part of why we do see a lot of pressure on prices is that while demand has come back, Americans have more income because Americans have jobs in this almost historically low level of unemployment. It's been hard for the supply side to keep up. That's a big part of what we're working on the infrastructure side, dealing with some of the bottlenecks that we have, dealing with some of the constraints that we have in transportation infrastructure that's needed to be upgraded for decades, which is why Washington has talked about doing something about it for decades. And under this president, it has finally gotten done.
There's nothing better than literally that entire time that he's talking and he's talking about his accomplishments and everything the White House is doing, that you see like empty grocery stores with no produce or no meat anything on the shelves. You literally see foreclosure signs, houses being sold, people are out of work. I mean, showing the market going down. So as he's talking about all the accomplishments, it just shows a shellacking of everything that's actually taking place in the United States. And that's a common theme for the White House, where they're completely oblivious to what's actually taking place. And they're saying that everything is fine, everything's going A-OK according to them, folks. I apologize for laughing because I know it's a serious issue, but it is remarkable. And you all know it's remarkable, the messaging that's coming out from this White House. And we'll get to more messaging from the White House in just one moment. I hope you enjoyed that clip from the Bald Brad Show. If you did, make sure to hit that subscribe button so you can stay up to date on all our future content.